Hello and good vibes, everyone, and welcome to the Good Morning Minute podcast. I'm Angelina, your host, and this season we are diving into our series, Take Over Living the Life God Already Won. This series is all about what happens when we stop striving, stop trying to control everything, and finally allow God to take over the areas we've been carrying on our own. So, we're talking faith, healing, identity, purpose, growth, and real life moments that transform us from the inside out. And today I'm so honored and excited to have our special guest. Our guest today is Debbie. Debbie, welcome to Good Morning Minute.
Hi, glad to be here with you guys.
Lovely. Well, Debbie, before we get started, I want our listeners to know a little bit more about you. So take some time and just share a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Sure. Well, I would tell you, all journeys are kind of have highs and lows, and so buckle your seatbelt. But I get lots of beautiful titles. I am a wife to Scott, and the interesting thing about him is he gets to train astronauts, and so that's kind of a cool thing here in Houston. I am a mom to 9 adopted children, all with sibling groups and 3 different adoptions, and they have trauma backgrounds. And then we did have 4 biological children that passed away early in our relationship. And I held them as they passed away and died. And then we adopted. And then I am now called Lolly because I am the best Lolly ever grandma that rocks this earth. And I have 15 grandbabies. And so, gotten lots of titles that way, but I'm also a CEO of a nonprofit that we started about 16 years ago that helps families thrive. And I get to do that. And then now I'm expanding and I coach other CEOs, executives, in how to be successful in their businesses as leaders, but also how to set their businesses up for future success. And so that's what I get to spend additional time doing. So that's who I am.
Oh, what a pleasure to get to know you. And then I'm just excited to jump into your story. But man, 15 grandchildren. What a
I know.
blessing. I love that. I'm a grandmother of three, so I can just imagine 15, just seeing the legacy grow in that capacity is so beautiful. And, so it brings hope for me when I see my grandbabies. So I can just imagine the hope that you see in each of those children. So that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Uh, so yeah, let's go ahead and just kind of jump into. I know that we before the conversation, we were talking about several different things that you've experienced, and I tend to gravitate towards the 9 children that were adopted because that's kind of where that's my realm of expertise, and so I want to hear a little bit more about that story. What did that look like for you, and when did you come to a point where you realized like I can't carry this all alone because they come from trauma backgrounds.
Yeah.
I'm sure. So
Yeah.
yeah, let's talk about that.
Okay. Well, I think when, after we had our boys and the boys passed away,
Mhm.
we thought about trying to get pregnant again. And I was just my body was too exhausted. We had done fertility stuff and we both just felt like we needed a break. And through that, God called me out of my engineering career and sent me to seminary where I got another degree. And then I started working in churches. And when I started working in churches, I remember when I lost the boys, I was like, God, I'm going to trust you with this situation. And if we're to have children, you are going to show us what that looks like. And we're just going to trust you. And as I went through seminary, when I got my first full time position, it was a children's pastor and an admin pastor. And I was like, okay, God, I meant my own children, not 300 other people's children. But it was a wonderful training ground for my husband, who's absolutely scared of children. So that's how God kind of got us warmed up to the idea. And we were sitting there, we were both out of school, we were both had jobs. And I looked at him and I'm like, if we're going to ever have children of our own, we might need to try again now because I'm getting older, and we sat and had a discussion and we had this kind of thought of we could spend all our money trying to get pregnant and end up with nothing. And the last piece of that journey had been so hard. Or we could look into foster or foster to adopt or just straight adopting out of the foster care system because there were kids that were legally free that needed homes. And we could look at seeing if we would qualify for some of those children, and then we could spend all our money there because we're going to spend it one way or the other. And one way we would have children and one way we might not have children. And so we began exploring this option of adoption. And we sat down and we asked all the crazy questions that people do because a lot of people are interested in it, but just seems so overwhelming. And we sat there and I was, like, can I love someone who's not my blood? That type of question. And then I was like, you know, I love my husband and he ain't my blood. So somehow God works it all out, right? And so I was like, okay, God must be able to work all this out. And we started going down the path, and we knew that we did not want to foster. We just wanted to go what they call the straight adoption route, just kids that were in the foster care system that were legally free. And we were open to a sibling group and we were open to older children. And we'd been married, I don't know, about 12 years at that time. So we were kind of set in our ways too. But we ended up with a sibling group of four that were presented to us. And as we worked with our caseworker, their paperwork just said, do not place these kids together over and over and over again because there was some issues with potential violence with the older child, with the younger ones. And I looked at my caseworker and I was like, if they're all saying this, I don't know why they're trying to put them together. And we probably shouldn't say yes. And it's very hard when you would like to have children and you have beautiful children in front of you and you have to say no. And so we said no to that group. And a short time later, this sibling group of five came along. And those kiddos were perfect for us. And so we went from 0 to 5 overnight. And the funniest story in all of it is the very first day, and they were going on 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay. And so it was a basketball team. So this little 6-year-old, the very first day, he comes inside and he's looking up at me and he's like, what's for lunch? And I look at this little kid and I'm like, dude, do you ask this every day? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got to have a plan because I don't really cook. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, these things are going to need to eat every day, 3 times a day. And so, fortunately, I had another master's at the time in organizational management. And I was like, I need to kick that thing in gear. And we put systems and procedures. And it was totally life changing for us to go from none to five. And, especially when they had difficult backgrounds. We were super blessed with our first five that their foster parents had done excellent jobs with them. And so they came pretty much ready to be in a forever home. And that was a real blessing. And we've kept them kind of as grandparents through the years. And then about 7 years later, I looked at my husband and I said, I think we're supposed to be adopting again. And he's looking at me going, nope. And I'm going, well, you better start praying about it. And he agreed to start praying about it. And after about 6 weeks, he finally said yes. And the kids were all in it. Now you have kids to just, consider when you're doing this adoption. So we were still open to sibling groups, but we were a little less open to the level of violence and stuff like that the children may have. And because we had kids in our home already. And lo and behold, within 6 months, we got another sibling group of two that were 9 and 11. And my children were, I'm sorry, they were 11 and 13. And my children were 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And so they moved in and we thought that would go well. And that was so hard blending the family together because like my youngest he was excited to be an older brother, but the older son and the second one was like, you're too immature, I'm gonna go hang out with the 18-year-old, and so he was so disappointed. And that made it, we figured our way through that. And you have things where they tell each other they hate each other because they're not siblings, and I'm like, okay, we're all part of one family. we're going to figure this out. And
Yeah.
then about 3 years after that, we felt like we were supposed to do it again. We had one of our grandchildren that was maybe going to end up in CPS custody. Maybe we were supposed to be prepared for that, or maybe we were supposed to adopt again, or maybe God was going to teach us something different. And fortunately, my grandchild did not end up in CPS custody. We ended up with another two children, and they were 9 and 11. And then we ended up with that is where I was first introduced to trust based relational intervention when it was first coming out. And that was an eye opener for us as to what we could do, or needed to change and how we needed to become who we needed to become to be these kids' best parents. But I would tell you that it doesn't matter whether you have 5, 7, or 9, or 1 or 2, that there are times where we would just lay in bed and go, God, if you are not for real, we are crazy. We are totally crazy to have done this. And to realize the magnitude of the difficulty that we're dealing with. But here's the thing that I've learned the most: the biggest learning lesson is not that my children had to grow, is that I had to grow to become the mom that they needed me to be. And so
Mm.
there was a lot of things in me. There's a lot of my history, because we all bring our histories to the table. And my history has a certain level of woundedness and need to control and do all these things. And I would find myself getting very irritated. And, when you're irritated, you're not operating out of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, or self control. And what I realized was that whatever was going on was hitting my woundedness, and I needed to work on me so that in that situation, I could still be fully present. And I could see the tremendous value of this child and not see them as my enemy. And I think for me over the years, that has been the biggest growth thing that I have had to do even harder work on than my children had to work on some of their stuff. So,
Okay, Debbie. This is I love this because I would like all these questions, but um no, and you mentioned something that is so vital, especially coming from someone who is adopting to grow their family.
yeah.
You know, is that you had to become the mom that they needed.
Mhm.
So many times what I've experienced in this field is people stepping into, because you talk about baggage, stepping in to feel that grief of I can't have my own children, so I want to do it this way. And they kind of romanticize the idea of adoption, like you're going to get just this perfect little baby that just wasn't wanted or wasn't being taken care of very well, but they too bring in their own trauma. And I love that you were open to large sibling groups, older children. That's such a need. Um, but to really truly understand that they're bringing in their stuff that's going to trigger your stuff, and like how do we make this work? Because I know that hearing the victory in the story here, like they're grown, they're bringing you grandbabies, but hearing that victory, I mean, it was a process to get there, because you did mention systems and processes as you organized your household. What was that like what were some of the maybe identity issues that you saw your children struggle through, and then what did that do for you as their mother, because you're also having to fix yourself and maintain yourself so that you can be present and in tune with their needs? Like, what was that like?
Well, first of all, I'll tell you, you can't control anything your kids do. You can create safeguards and rails or whatever, but they're their own little people. And so they're going to do their stuff, right? And what you and I have to do is we have to be the adult, and we have to be the safe person, and we have to be the boss. And a lot of times these kids don't like that, because we have to remember that if they come to us out of foster care, generally they are not there because they are bad children. Generally, they are there for a failure of their parents, and they've often experienced things that we would want no child to have to experience. Or they've, like, if a mom dies of cancer and she's a single mom and no family are around, and these kids go into the system, they're not bad kids. They just have a lot of trauma, and they need people who will step in and love them. So, what I would say to any of us that enter, I train a lot of families to prepare them for adoption. And I always try to talk them out of doing it. Okay. Because I'm like, if I can talk you out of doing it, you should never do it because it's going to be hard. It's the hardest thing we've ever done. And it's the best thing that we've ever done. But if you can't figure your way through grief and heartache, then it's going to be a nightmare. So if we're going into adoption and we're going into it because we couldn't have children and we're replacing, not necessarily replacing, but we want to have children, so we're going to go this way and it kind of fills a need for us, that's great. But I guarantee you, it ain't going to be any fun when a child looks you in the face and tells you, I hate your guts and you can just rot and die.
Mm.
Okay. And you will get that. And I've had that, my children have come back around and said, you know, we were bad a lot of times. I'm like, no joke. But I'm like going, that is just their woundedness. Part of it's just typical teenager. Part of it is their woundedness coming out. And we have to understand that when we become the safe parents, okay, when I love them when they're good, when I love them when they're bad, when I stay, okay, and this child gets to a place because when they first come in your home, they're going, are you going to love me when I'm good? Okay, that worked. Okay, are you going to love me when I'm bad? So I'm going to try everything I've tried on everybody before to get you to reject me before I give you my heart. Okay, well, I call that the hell period. Okay, and every child is different. And then we find a new normal after that. Okay, and that child then, when they begin to feel safe, is when they begin to be able to let down their guard and they begin to, so you see some of the maladaptive behaviors come out, you see some of the sexually acting out, you see all these things that I have to, as a parent, go, okay, is this normal behavior? Is this malicious behavior? Or is this just abnormal? We learned it the wrong way, right? So if I have a child that sexually acts out and she's 8, it's not because that's who she is, it's because it's what she's seen or she's learned, right? And so I have to go, okay, that's not okay. So we're going to figure our way through this, right? And if I freak out over that, then it makes her pile on shame and guilt. And I don't need to do that. I need to be the mom that comes in and walks alongside of her. So for me, as I walk through this process, the best way to understand it is when we enter into these types of relationships with these kids for life, then we really get to see what it looks like from the other side when Jesus is dealing with us, right? Okay. I'm the little kid and Jesus deals with me, but I get to be Jesus to these kids. I get to extend grace. I get to help them work through their stuff. And my kids have gone through, and they would all tell you if they're here, they've gone through numerous things. And one of the most challenging times has been when they turned 18. When they turned 18, they generally were a year behind in school. And so we still had a senior year to go. And unfortunately, a lot of these kids believe that at 18, they can handle the world. They have worldly experience of a 30-year-old, and they have the maturity of a 9-year-old.
Mhm.
And so they are a walking dangerous combination. So that's my whole goal is to figure out how to get their trajectory back on track. But
Mhm.
once this adulthood comes in, adulthood brings different complexities because when they're out of my house, I can't create the safe corral that we can all be in. So we have lived with children who have done extreme drug abuse. We have lived with children who have been prostitutes, we've drug dealers, we have felonies, we have all kinds of things. And the truth of the matter is, these adult children are still my children.
Mm.
And so as we walk alongside them, I've learned there's two things I can control. I can pray and plant positive seeds in my children and anyone I come into contact with, and I can leave a bridge to Jesus.
Mm.
And that is my job. And so, even when my daughter was strung out and on drugs and was in prison, for a felony, I'm like, she's still my girl. And, she's 3+ years sober now. And she's
Mm.
a wonderful child to be around. And you
Mhm.
know what? If we wouldn't have been in her life, she probably would be lost to the world or dead.
Mhm.
And she's a beautiful, 26-year-old. But that's a long time, right? To stay the course. And so I don't tell all those things to discourage people, but we have to understand that this is a 24/7 mission field
Mhm.
that we are placed on.
Mhm.
And guess what? They don't go home. And if they go home, it's your house. And so they're still there. And so it is a lifelong commitment, just like I make in my marriage, that before I ever meet you, I am committed to you for the rest of my life. And I am going to be your mom, no matter how high or how low it is. And we are going to do this thing called life together. And that has been the journey for, I guess, 24 years now.
Wow. No, and and you're right. It is a commitment. It is a,
Mhm.
a covenant, so to speak, that you make
Yep.
with these children as you're bringing them into your house. Because I have seen um, parents that want to adopt and, they want to love these kids, but when it starts becoming the teenage years and, they're getting into the complexity of becoming a young adult, they think 18, you can't tell me what to do. I'm 18. And they want to be set free, or they want to go find their biological parents, and they want to know where they come from and all these things, that really poses a challenge for adoptive parents, because it's almost like a person, they feel personally attacked and hurt because they have poured out all their love. And I think that's part of that identity issue, like that false identity that they come in with, especially if they're older children, because you haven't had that time. I mean, TBRI, you haven't had that time
Yeah.
to reprogram, their thought process and really work in that relationship. So if you're adopting and they're like 15 years old, well, you really only have 3 years to try to really build a relationship, so that before they hit that 18 and that little switch goes off to where they're like, okay, I'm 18, I can go now. Um, and really, so that's the thing, because relationship, what I often say is, and I think it's something Karen Pervin may have alluded to, is trust was broken at a relationship level, so it has to be repaired at a relationship level. And I mean that, and it has to be intense, especially with, the trauma backgrounds that a lot of the children in adoption stories come from. You have to roll up your sleeves and you have to be there. And for you to sit there and say, I walked with my daughter through it, the muck of it all, and she still knows she's loved. She still knows I'm a safe place. It isn't a reflection of poor parenting at all, but a reflection of love and compassion and grace. You're emulating Jesus in this relationship, and just knowing that she can be there and count on you and know that you're not going to turn her away. I think that's so beautiful. But it's so hard because I'm sure
It's not easy. That's
yeah, I'm sure
right.
you did a lot of tears. I'm sure you did a lot of tears and
Yeah.
a lot of praying. A lot of
Mhm.
praying. I'm pretty sure. And I guess my next question to you is like, what do you tell? So you're helping other adoptive parents go through these journeys. What do you tell them to help them stay encouraged, to help them stay connected and just inspired to continue to walk this walk, because it's not easy at all.
Right. And so, first of all, I, when I'm first talking to them before they even go down this path, it's like, you've got to understand this is a mission field.
Mhm.
24/7, you're in it for good, and there's no turning back. And if you're going to back out now, because it is so damaging to
Mhm.
back out in the process or after you get them in your home. It is so it's just a whole nother trauma for the kids. And we don't want to have that. My second sibling group went into a home that was a permanent placement, and those parents kind of freaked out and put them back in the system. That is horrible. I don't blame those people, but I mean, the experience for the kid is like, not only do my birth parents don't want me, this family doesn't want me, and I'm the problem, and I'm like, yeah, you do have problems, but you're not the problem. But
Yeah.
I'm like, we're going to work through them. And I'm like going, what does that say? That it's just so hard to overcome. So this is why the commitment is so important. Okay. And then what I say is, hey, you need to make sure that you have safety nets built around you. So, who are people that you can trust with your children? And it's not everybody. Not everybody knows how to handle a kid that comes from a trauma background, but we can do this together. So, who are you networked with that can begin to be trained and understand how to work with your children and how to understand, that there might be times that they just go off. And it was like, all I did was ask you to put the napkins on the table. But it was just too much emotional overload for them. We see that in, toddlers and stuff. And the most valuable thing I learned was that, really, if I could learn when my kid was having an outburst of something, that I needed to approach them at half of their biological age. So if it's a 10-year-old, I need to treat him like I would treat a 5-year-old, not because I'm going to excuse the behavior, but because I'm going to drop down and get him back on track. And then we're going to lift the bar back up. Right. And so I know what I would expect from a 10-year-old, and I know how I would deal with them. Right. And so I get extremely frustrated because here's this 10-year-old body, but they are really a 5-year-old. And so what would I do with a 5-year-old? Oh, I'd probably cuddle him a little bit and say, I know you're having a bad day, dude. And, and get him back on track, right? Well, I got to do the same thing with a 10-year-old, my 20-year-old, when they're breaking down their 10. And I'm like, okay, let's, and so that really reframed my thinking and helped me walk into the situations well. So, like my grandbabies that have moved back in the house, 1 6, he totally lost it yesterday. He's a 3-year-old. He is a he's a 3-year-old. He's a trauma kid. His mom's in an abusive relationship. He's seen the violence and everything. And I'm going, he's losing it mainly because it's a safe place and we were outside and it was really hot yesterday. And I'm like, buddy, we can do this. We will do this together. And that's how we walk through it. Build time in there for you too. What is the 5 minutes a day that you can have by yourself? What is that 30 minutes once a week? Or what is the date night, every other week? Because you got to take care of you too. And if we don't take care of us, then we cannot be the people that we need to be for them. And they want us to be the best that we can be. So they're cool with it. They may not like it all the time. That, why are you doing your 5 minutes? I'm like, dude, if I don't get my 5 minutes, it's going south. Go away from me for a minute. And it's okay. And it's okay for me to have timeouts for me. Right.
Yeah, no,
And
I,
then
I
to come
love
back
that
in. Yeah.
self-care. Yeah, I love that self-care concept because as you model it, you're modeling it for them too. So how many times have you heard your children come back at you and go, "No, I need my 5 minutes, Mom, please step away."
Yes. Can I sit still for 5 minutes? I'm like, that's a wonderful idea.
Please let me give you those 5 minutes
Yes.
for sure. Oh,
Mhm.
I love it.
Take 7 if you need it.
You can come get me when you're ready.
Yeah.
That is so definitely. Oh, I love it. I feel so inspired. If somebody was out there listening, Debbie, to us speaking and on the conversation, and they are just at their utter exhaustion, they feel like they've tried everything. What's one thing that you can give them just to kind of help them understand that they're not alone and that we are doing this together, just to give them that encouraging word so that they can continue to move forward.
Well, first of all, I would say, we perform for an audience of one, and that is Jesus. And Jesus looks at us and he is not disappointed. He looks at us and he smiles. He might go, hey, you have a bunch of stuff we got to work on, but he's like wrapping his arm around us, going, hey, we're going to tackle that together. Okay. But when your daddy God looks at you, he smiles. And if I am leaning in and falling more in love with him, then he will guide me through all these things. I cannot tell you time after time after time after time after time that God has come through for us as we walked through this, because working with children who are needing to be adopted is really the heart of God. It is truly the center of God's will. Center of God's will does not mean it's easy, but he is there. He has always been there for us. And I would say, hey, you know, your best is good enough.
Mm.
And that's enough. And you know what? Guess what? The sun's going to come up tomorrow and we're going to get to try again. And
Mm,
so, a lot of times for us, just standing and staying is so, so powerful. We don't realize the amazing impacts that we have. My daughter, that was on the streets since she was probably, I don't know, about 16 or 17, and then has been sober for 3 years. It's been a long journey.
mm.
But on my birthday card, she wrote, Mom, I want to be like you one day. Okay. And this is a child that hated me. And she would tell you, but she's such a blessing, and God is working a good work in her, and God is working a good work in our children. And for me to learn surrender and humility and
Mm,
trust, this is doing exactly what Jesus did when he walked on this earth, to do the will of the Father. And that is a privilege. So I would say lean in, get those people that will encourage you and give you some respite and help you figure your way. But those are the people that you need in your life, not the ones that just say abandon ship, because we can do this. We can do this together.
I love it. Well, before we wrap up, I definitely want to give you some space to share what you're working on right now, where people can get in contact with you if they want to reach out after this interview. So go ahead and share with us.
Yeah, I would say, hey, I don't know how close people are to Houston, but if you're a listener and you have children that fall in these categories and we do therapeutic camps every summer, and that is at our ministry. It's called anchorpoint.us, and we are TBRI trained, and it's a wonderful therapeutic camp that is about really a year and a half to 2 years of therapy, and it's for the whole family. So I would encourage you to do that if you can get there. You have to apply and be a part of it, but that's every summer. And then I would say, if you want to learn more about me, go to thedebbieSimmons.com. And then, as a gift for your listeners, my first book, which tells the rest of the adoption story and the starting of Anchor Point and all that good stuff, it's called The Heart of Legacy, and it's about how to be a focused, faithful, and fearless person. And it is a blessing. It's free of charge to you, and that can be kind of that respite 5 minutes maybe that you need. But it has wonderful stories of life change in the back that have happened through the ministry. You can get that at theheartoflegacy.com as a
Mm.
blessing.
Well, thank you so much, Debbie. I'm going to say this conversation has been a powerful one. And your story, your heart, your wisdom, just inspiring. And to everyone that is listening, I hope today reminded you healing is possible, growth is possible, and you don't have to carry everything alone. God is not asking you to fight for victory. He already won. He's asking you to trust Him enough to let Him take over. So, friends, until next time, I am Angelina, your life coach, sending you much love, much peace, many blessings.